Damien, why Neil Armstrong?
I think the thing that really interested me the most was finding out just how difficult this period in Neil's life was. Growing up, I thought of the moon landing, of course, as this sort of great success story, and I think the history of it has been sort of cast in this glow that lives in the aftermath of the success. But when you unwind a little bit and look back at, Neil, for example, right when he first joined NASA and the 7 to 8 years from that moment till his landing on the moon, I got a sense of such sacrifice, such loss, such hardships, such trauma at times, that it really made me start to, again, ask questions that I tried to ask in earlier movies as well, what the cost of a goal is and what the worth of a goal is. And there's no more famous goal in a way than landing someone on the moon. So it seemed like an interesting approach to take.
Josh, you're writing a movie about something that really happened. Everybody thinks they know everything about it, but it's also, you're trying to write an emotional movie about a guy who didn't show his emotions. I mean, what were the challenges of that?
I thought, Neil Armstrong, I don't know, it sounds kind of bland, right? But when you actually get into the detail of who this guy was and what he had to deal with over the 6-7 years en route to the moon, I was just blown away. The amount of loss, the amount of sacrifice, the amount of failure. Right? There's a line in engineering that says engineering is the obviation of failure, and I think that's very much what our trip to the moon was. And seeing those failures in and out, throughout his story, just made it all the more inspiring. And it's true, Neil is a very emotionally tightly packaged man, as described by his biographer Jim Hansen, who I work closely with. So we had to go the extra mile and really work with Rick and Mark.
Are there things about the Neil Armstrong story that speak to today, you think?
In a way, it sort of comes back to what first struck Josh and me about the history, was just that we forget how hard it was, and we also forget how much the people who were putting themselves on the line, how ordinary those people were. I think there is part of this sort of mythology of NASA at the time is, A, these were superheroes, and as an extension, B, it was all easy. They sort of rolled out of bed, got into those spacecrafts, went to the moon, and isn't that great? Certainly, as the research kind of showed us, that wasn't the reality. And so I think what fascinated us the most, maybe, and what we really wanted to try to keep getting at through the script, through the shooting, through the editing, was again that sense of reality, that sense of trying to bring it all down to earth, create family scenes and dynamics that we could relate to, show how terrifying and visceral some of these missions would be, but also how Ryan would also often talk about, you have to create a character where after he's done kind of plunging through the atmosphere, comes back down to earth, barely, he has to take out the trash, he has to clean the pool, he has to figure out what to make his kids for breakfast. That there was a normalcy and a quotidian reality at the heart of all of this. And to the people growing up in Houston, in these neighborhoods in Houston, their parents were just doing their jobs. They weren't making history. So I think we wanted to ground everything and just look at the ordinariness at the core of it, and at the same time emphasize how difficult, how unlikely the whole enterprise was, so that we don't forget, so that we can actually fully appreciate the heroism, that the real life heroism, not the mythologized heroism, but the real life heroism that it involved.